Hey guys, I'm here for another episode of random questions that come to my mind and I answer them. Except a lot of you wanted a killer version to this episode, since I just did one a little bit ago, which it was for Survivor, and I'm going to leave a card up in the top right now so you can go watch that one. So for all the people that requested a killer one, here you are today. It was a lot of fun to make, and also because we will be having a very similar criteria, and the way this video is set up is identical to how that one was made as well, with the perks being on the side as well as the killer portrait, so you guys know all the time who I'm talking about, as to not get lost, and when I say what the best perk is, I'll have that up on screen as well. As always, I hope you guys enjoy, and let's keep this intro short this time. But one quick thing I do want to note is that the DVD wiki hasn't updated the perks yet from the 9.1.0 update, so there will be some boxes around some perks, but that shouldn't be too bad of a problem. So let's get started. As always, we are going to be going in order from top to the bottom of the killer roster. So we are starting with our favorite little outdated boy, Trapper, who personally I think he has some of the best perks in the game just for quality of life purposes. Although he does have Unnerving Presence, which I will say has literally helped me as Survivor more than it is an actual issue. The only way this perk gets any value is if you pair it with things like Oppression or Overcharge, or you just play Doctor. And it was a close battle between Agitation and Brutal Strength, but I'm ultimately going to go with Agitation as the best, just because I think the value you can get from this perk is insane. It's so nice to be able to feel fast when you have someone on your shoulder just running around. You can use this for backpack builds as well, and Starstruck and things like that. I love Brutal Strength too, because it's so nice to be able to break those pallets faster and catch up even quicker, and I honestly can see an argument being made for Brutal, but I'm just biased because I love both of these perks equally. Wraith honestly has some pretty bad perks for him being one of the default characters, but I think the best one would be Predator, just because of how this can give you such good value if you are playing someone like Pyramid Head or Nurse, and purposely lose the chase just to see where they are. And I will say that Wraith's perks seem to be more catered towards new players, and that's always welcoming in DBD as a whole, but Shadowborn might just be one of the worst perks now after its changes. I used to run Shadowborn on every killer when it was just increasing FOV, and now it's got a terrible effect that doesn't really help at all, and Bloodhound is just okay. Nothing special, and it'll help you sometimes, but all in all, it's just okay. So I think Predator is definitely the best one here. Hillbilly was a close one because all three of his perks come into a lot of use if used correctly, but Lightborn is probably the worst one just because it won't come in handy all too much, but when you see 2 or 3 flashlights in your game, then this perk will make you laugh so hard. And while Tinker is incredibly good for the gen slowdown and being able to see where people are exactly, I think the best one here is Enduring, just because this can end loops so fast, and you never have to respect pallets again, because the point just kinda gets eliminated. Especially with the anniversary that happened a little bit ago, Apocalyptic Ingenuity I think, and then stuff like Spirit Fury, this perk is just so nice no matter what, and a lot of killers can get great value from it too. Nurse's perks seem to have really gone downhill over the years if I'm honest. They used to be really useful, but now they are kinda just eh. But I think the best one here is probably Nurse's Calling. It's not a bad perk and can definitely help you a lot, but I've personally never really gotten too much use from it, and while Strider can be nice on like Spirit, I think it actually messes with you more than it helps you. And while Thanatophobia is good on certain killers, it's ultimately not that good of a slowdown in my opinion at least, so that's why I just think Nurse's Calling is the best one out of the bunch here. But I guess Thanatophobia is useful on like Plague and stuff, but you never really see Plagues. Myers perks used to be really good as well, but I feel like they are also just slowly lost their value over the years. Similar to how Myers himself just isn't that good anymore. But all in all, I think the best one that can be used consistently, the best out of all of these, is gonna be Save the Best for Last, which definitely isn't good on every killer, but the killers that work amazing with it, like Houndmaster or Trapper, it is brutal on them, because it feels like the Survivor just makes no distance at all, but the nerf that they did to it kinda killed it for me. But I just haven't used it all too much since then, but I don't know if it's still by far his best. A worthy contender would definitely be Play With Your Food, but this perk is not really even worth it on most killers, and will basically do nothing for you, although the speed is really fun to have, and Dying Light just isn't that good of a slowdown perk unfortunately, so definitely Save the Best for Last is the best. Hag is our queen of hexes, since she's the one that brought them in, but I believe by far the best perk she has is Hex Ruin. If you find a survivor alone that has been doing a gen and it's at a pretty good amount, then you'll know that most likely you're going to be fine, because you don't have to go back and kick the gen and you are gaining pressure for the survivor, because even if they let go of their precious gens for even a second, it starts regressing. And I honestly think that Ruin was buffed with the introduction of the gens needing to be done for, I think, 2.5% to stop regressing, because you can't just tap the gen, and Ruin is a constant problem for survivors. Devour Hope is really good too, but I don't think it's as good as Ruin can be. And Third Seal isn't bad either, but just needs a specific build or map to even work. So that's why I say Ruin is the best. Doctor perks aren't terrible, like Monitor and Abuse can definitely be used on killers with a 24-meter terror radius, just to spook the survivors, so it gets points based on that alone. And Overcharge is mainly used for impossible skill check doctors, or just surprise the survivors, but the longer the game goes on, the less effective this perk really is, I think, because eventually survivors will catch on that you are running this. But I do think that the new rework to Overwhelming Presence made it his best perk by far. And because I couldn't get a screenshot of that, I'll change the whole perk side to Overwhelming Presence, so now you can read it if you aren't aware. While they took out the less efficient tools part of the perk, they made it so if someone uses it within 32 meters of you, they get exhausted, which is already pretty good, but the addition of being able to see survivors when they go exhausted is such a good addition, because there are so many other perks and killer add-ons specifically that make survivors exhausted. So this pairs well with basically every killer now. It's not OP, I don't think, but I definitely can see this getting a lot of use now. And that's so cool to see a useless perk actually become pretty good. Huntress is like the Ada and Talita version of Killer, where all of her perks are so bad. She really needs a rework with her perks because they are just so situational. Like, you never really want to use Beast of Prey because you want to end chases as quickly as you can without getting this perk. And if you aren't using your power often in chase, then you most likely aren't using that killer to their fullest potential. And don't even get me started on how trash Territorial Imperative is, man. So that's why I'm gonna go with Huntress Lullaby for the best, just because it actually can get some value and really messes with the survivor team if not found immediately. But that's unfortunately the problem with hexes as a whole, because they give you a bunch of value. It's like a high risk, high reward, you know, where if the survivor spawns right next to the totem, it's game over. This can really give you a lot of value if you can rack up those stacks quickly, so that's why it's her best. Bubba, I think we can all agree that his best is in City, I mean Barbecue and Chili. Being able to see where you need to go next is incredibly useful, and also doesn't make you the a-hole for having to go back to Hook every time, because you don't know where anybody is. Franklin's demise got kinda gutted with this last patch, where now survivor items don't deplete on the ground, and after Knockout's rework, I think it definitely got better, but if we compare it with the value of Barbecue and Chili, it doesn't even stand a chance. So Barbecue and Chili by far is Bubba's best perk, and one that a lot of killer mains find necessary too. Freddy is the king of underdog perks, where all of his perks get stronger as the game goes on, where if you are losing heavily, you actually have a chance to get that 4K. And that's why it's hard to choose just one that is his best, because they are all the best in their own scenario. But overall, I think the best one here is Blood Warden, just because of the history that this perk has on Survivor players, where they are all so scared of it. Everyone get out of the exit gate immediately. What if he has Blood Warden? It's so set in stone with the history of this game, with survivors get so freaked out about it. I'm definitely one of those people who is, because I've been hit with many cheeky Blood Warden plays. And I think Remember Me got a buff with the release of Springtrap because of Haywire specifically, and already it's a pretty solid perk. And I personally just really like Fire Up because of all the effects that get progressively better. But this is definitely situational, because if you smash in your game, you'll never actually be able to use anything from Fire Up. So I'm gonna say Blood Warden is the best, although I can definitely see an argument for literally any of these other ones. Pig recently just got a buff to Hangman's Trick, and I personally don't know if it's good or not, but I don't think the effects of Hangman's Trick is all that helpful too much anyways. But what I do know is I think that Make Your Choice is her best, because it installs fear within that survivor, where they really have to be careful around you for the next 60 seconds, which is a lot of time for this game, I think. And on M1 killers, this perk is so good and was made for them, especially killers that could teleport across the map quickly like Onryo or Dredge. And I do think Surveillance can be useful, but I just don't think it warrants a perk slot for its effect, especially when you can run a perk that we'll get into a little bit later, and it does the exact same effect for you, but better. I'm gonna go with Make Your Choice though for her best, for sure. Clown is an interesting one because he's a character that has all around really good perks, where two of them are meta and the other one is just kind of okay. Colorophobia is the okay one, where normally it's probably not gonna be too good, but on killers with 40-meter tear radiuses and other things that cause hemorrhage and mangled, it is probably going to be the most painful game for the survivor. So now it's a fight between Bamboozle and Pop Goes the Weasel for the best, and it could go either way depending on what side you are on. But I'm gonna go with Pop for the best, and yes, I'm shortening it to fit the video. I think this perk is probably one of the more annoying to deal with as a survivor in general, but specifically if you're in a 3-gen situation, then this perk becomes clutch for you as the killer, since you can just keep kicking that gen and really getting use out of this perk. And Bamboozle is good too, but if it's a competition between Pop and Bamboozle, I think Pop goes out on top here, just because of how much it helps you in the long game. Spirit, I think we can all agree that the best one here is Spirit Fury, and the reason I say this is because this perk is basically allows you to just eat the pallet like Queso when he sees Wendy's. Now you don't have to be afraid of anything, and can just take it to the head with or without enduring too, which is super nice. Haunted Grounds is nice, but you only get to use it once per game, or 2 if you run Undying with it, but still that's not going to turn out too well, since you still have to find survivors. And Ranker is one of the more oh crap perks for Survivor. It's just okay at best, since typically you want everybody dead before the last gen pops, but it comes in clutch when you need it most, but definitely Spirit Fury for sure. Legion has very simple perks thankfully, and while Mad Grit is one of the best memes in this game by far because of the swinging animation, I do think that Discordance is the best one by far. It gives you so much knowledge as to who is doing what when it procs, plus it tells you where you need to prioritize going next so you don't get absolutely gen rushed. I think Iron Maiden can be good too, but it only really works with killers that have to reload at lockers or Bubba, so you won't really get too much value from it. So Discordance is the best here. Plague has some very unique perks to her name, and while Dark Devotion is more of a mind gamey perk, it's definitely the most fun to use, but unfortunately it's not her best, where I believe that Corrupt Intervention is her best, because this is the only reason that Trapper is actually somewhat viable nowadays. But seriously, this perk ends up being such a big help, because just by bringing this perk, you force people towards you at the start of the game, which slows them down a bunch and puts them out in the open a lot more. And Infectious Fright is really good on most killers, but doesn't give too much value for some, if that makes sense. But no matter what, Corrupt Intervention is by far the best because of how much it does for you for just one simple effect. Ghostface brought a lot of decent perks to DVD, where not one of them was completely useless. Furtive Chase used to be garbage, but now with its changes where you get the Hasten Undetectable, I think it's actually become pretty viable if you want to really be annoying. And recently I've seen a lot of killers running Thrilling Tremors more and more because I think people are finally seeing the potential it has for being a pretty good information perk. Although when survivors notice you have this perk, they might start trying to play around it later in the game, which can sometimes screw over your information. So that's why I'm gonna go with I'm All Ears as the best, just because the information you get from this perk has helped me play killers like Huntress, Springtrap, Pyramid Head 2, because there's not too much the survivor can do, since they will most of the time never think that you have this perk and just think you got lucky. The amount of potential this perk has is insane, and the cooldown isn't even that long either, so you may be able to use this multiple times in chase if you need to, which can really allow you to shut down chases quickly. Demo has some pretty good perks, but I don't think there's any denying that Surge has to be his strongest one, because you see this perk almost every game you play, and against all M1 killers, because it's so good on them. It's one of the most annoying perks to play against a survivor, which adds points for sure, and his other perks aren't terrible, but they won't ever come to be as strong as Surge ever will be. Mindbreaker is also a really annoying perk to face, because it's the ultimate counter to what survivors run the most, which is exhaustion perks. The blindness can sometimes mess people up too, but it's so easy to get rid of it, unlike Surge and Cruel Limits. And Cruel Limits is a good idea, but I'm not sure if you'll really get use out of it as much as you think, so that's why Surge is just the best hands down. It's such a good slowdown perk. Oni was a tricky one, because he doesn't really have perks that are strong in any way. They all are just kind of meh. Out of all of these, I do think the best one here is Blood Echo. It's a situational perk for sure, but 30 seconds of exhausted for the injured survivor can completely make their sprint burst or their dead hards ineffective. And I feel like Nemesis is only really good when pairing it with certain builds and killers. Even then, it's not necessarily that good, but maybe I'm wrong, so let me know down below. And Zenshin Tactics just kind of feels unnecessary. Although the aura reading isn't bad at all, it's just like an I'm All Ears but simpler. But all the yellow auras, especially on killer, can sometimes feel overwhelming, so I'm gonna go with Blood Echo as its best, just because of how much value you really get from it. Deathslinger definitely has some of the more unique perk sets in the game for sure, that all come in handy, but one of these that stands out the most for being the best one here is Dead Man's Switch, no doubt. 50 entire seconds of a gen being blocked is absolutely crazy to me, and I personally think it's too long, because I see this so many times in my games, and I feel like almost every time the killer wins just because of this one perk they had. It has counterplay for sure, don't get me wrong, but it feels really oppressive as Survivor. But we are talking about killers, so it's the funniest thing when playing killer and you walk up to a 99 gen and it just gets blocked with Dead Man's, and the survivor just has to wait there for the timer. Although I definitely don't recommend running pop with this perk because it can definitely mess you up more than help you. And the other two perks are good, but take a lot of certain builds or situations just to work, so I think it's just kind of a meh effect. Unless you're running a full hex build with retribution, I guess, and then ranged killers for gearhead. But that's really all I can see being useful there. Pyramid Head's perks to me are all just kind of meh, and I've never really seen too many of them brought in game. But there is one that I see more than others, and I definitely do think it's the best one here, being Deathbound. The buff that was made really makes this perk viable to use, and not just a waste of a perk slot. In most maps, Oblivious won't really do much for you, but for those indoor maps, and if you aren't allowed killer, oh man, it becomes one of the better perks to have in those scenarios. Oblivious can also make the survivor super attentive and aware, because they are scared you'll come around a corner, so just watch out for that. Forced Penance I've only seen once in my 8 or so years of playing this game, because it was Chaos Shuffle. And Trail of Torment is good, but I think people run the Unknowns version of it more, so I just never really see it in play too much. It's a solid perk, but nobody really runs it right now. So that's why I say Deathbound is the best, as well as it completely throws some survivors off completely as well. Blight has a very unique set of perks to him that all work in different ways. I don't think the Dragon's Grip buff made it the best perk out of the bunch recently though, because already that perk is pretty hard to get value from, especially since most of the time you'll be hitting survivors with your special attack instead of your regular attack, but that is kind of the problem with, but I do think that these two hexes definitely come into play a lot of the time, and you can see both a lot, and it's really hard for me to determine exactly which one is better, because they are both really good in their own right. But I'm gonna go with Undying, because it protects all of your totems like Blood Favor. And now I will say if a survivor finds you have Undying, they'll most likely go around the map and look at every single totem spot, and whatever you were running will most likely be broken within 15 seconds, but you can at least get some value from it in the long run. But I definitely can see enough of an argument for Blood Favor for sure. Twins has perks that you definitely don't see every day, but I really think are underrated. Streetwise was bugged recently, so maybe Hoarder might have actually not been too bad, but other than that, it's not really that good. And while I love Oppression, it won't come in handy all too often since the play is to normally have things like Surge and Pain Res kick the gens for you. So I think the best one here is Coup de Grace, and I love this perk. And I'm sure you've all gotten hit or gotten a hit using Coup de Grace, and have just felt so good about it. It's a fun perk to use on killer and horrible to get hit by on survivor, but that's what makes it fun. I genuinely am happy when I get hit by a coup de grace because it's from as far away as possible, and you have that split second where you were like, they are not gonna hit this, why are they swinging? And then it keeps coming at you at full speed. Oh man, it's so fun to use, and I think definitely has come in clutch for me a couple times too, which is always really nice. Trickster has a bunch of interesting perks that are all very effective on their own, but even better when paired with other stuff. But solely just on these perks alone, I think the best one here is No Way Out, which has screwed me over plenty of times when playing a survivor. But I agree, can also do nothing at times as well when it's not really needed as much. It's one of those underdog perks, so that's why it's kinda eh. Starstruck is fun to play with, but it's the same issue with all the other exposed perks, considering you can't get its fullest potential with all the killers. Crowd Control is definitely really good too, but most of the time your totem will be found immediately, so I think No Way Out is a very good perk here. Nemesis just has to be Lethal Pursuer, no doubt about it. It's such a good perk for so many killers and allows other aura readings to become even better than they were before. It also allows killers to know exactly where to go, and already oppressive killers become even more oppressive, since normally when it comes to the survivor side, it's always better to not give the killer a hit right away and to delay it as much as you can. But when it comes to running lethal, it allows that first hit to happen so much faster. Hysteria is just a good passive perk, but won't always be that useful if you can't get too many injures, and Eruption is pretty good, but there are other better ways that break gens, so it's just gotta be lethal 100%. Artists like Nemesis, I'm getting it out of the way right now, that it's pain res 100% the best perk on Artist, and it's gotta be one of, if not the best killer perk in the game at this point, just because of how oppressive it is for the survivor side. It's in a better state now, but it's still really good to have just as a passive slowdown that rewards you for playing the game well, which is completely fair. It's by far the best perk on Artist, hands down. Pentimento was fun too, but honestly more fun when it had its old effects, and Grim Embrace is also a fantastic slowdown that also rewards for good gameplay, but Pain Res I think just ends up being the better one in this instance. And honestly, Artist is a great character to get first just because of the incredible perks on her too. Onryo has a lot of unique perks that are definitely better with other perks similar to them, but they are still good on their own. But out of all of these, I think that Colubrine is the best one here, because being able to regress the gen faster and be able to get some sort of notification when they get back on it is really good. It's a better surveillance in my opinion, but obviously has the problem where if they don't get a skill check you can't see that they are on it. Merciless Storm is really only good with Doctor, and yeah, I think it's actually not oppressive at all. And I personally just really like playing against Merciless because it's so fun and adds a bit of challenge to the gens, which I think is really nice. And Floods of Rage isn't bad at all, but I don't really see much potential when I use it, and don't actually see it sometimes, but I do think the Colubrine is better because of the potential that it has. Dredge has a lot of perks that I think work better for other killers, but they all use them amazingly, so it's hard to tell exactly which one would be the best out of all these. Like, Darkness Revealed isn't good on someone like Myers, let's say, but excels when on Huntress and Trickster. But I don't think that Darkness Revealed is the best one here. I think that spot goes to Dissolution, because this can be used by every killer. It's another one of those perks that is injured by any means, and has a really good effect that I think is super underrated. It makes survivors play around the loop very strangely, and not like how they would normally, which in most situations screw them up completely. It's all around a good perk, I think, that helps out a lot, and Septic Touch just isn't that good, I'm sorry. I just don't think that 10 seconds is enough, so Dissolution is 100% by far the best one. Wesker, while being fun to play as and against, which I have a video on that too by the way, so I'm going to leave a card up now if you want to go hear me talk about who I think is the best killers to go against. It was pretty fun. Wesker doesn't have too good of perks on him, to be honest. One of the more meh killer perk sets. Terminus is good, but only on specific killers and builds that go along with it. And I like Awakened Awareness, but I don't think it's the best one here because that privilege goes to Superior Anatomy, because not only is it fun, but it's pretty good too. Anything that allows you to vault the window faster to catch up to the survivors is always really good. Not to mention that you can run this with Myers with a specific build and vault incredibly fast. I think it ends up being one of the most useful perks here, although I definitely can see people preferring Awa Awa for sure. Night, just like Artist, I'm getting out of the way now and saying the best one is definitely Nowhere to Hide. Another perk that you were going to see a lot when playing Survivor because it's just so good. The fact that the aura reading is around your character and not the gen allows you to walk a little bit and get a better Awakened Awareness. The aura reading range on this perk is huge, that it really comes in handy for when there are only 2 survivors left, and this can really help you on inside maps, especially RPD. Hubris got an update with the numbers recently, which was nice, but it's still a very situational perk, but when it works, boy does it work. And Face of Darkness is just a fun perk that is kinda memey. It does work, and is incredibly annoying when it's the center of the build, but Nowhere to Hide stomps these completely in usefulness, making it by far the best. Skull Merchant honestly I think has a lot of pretty good perks. They aren't the best, but I think for what they do, they are really good. Game of Foot is a little confusing at times, but can help catch up to survivors in chase for sure. And while Thwack is one of the 2 perks with a punctuation mark in it, being definitely unique, this perk will help you out, but Leverage, which I think is the best one here, I've seen both from killer and survivor side, just completely ruin a team multiple times, since normally the play is to always unhook the survivor and then heal them right then and there. So the fact this perk counters such a crucial thing, it definitely makes it her best one for sure. Singularity has some very interesting perks, and what I find funny is how each of them inflict a different status effect, which I think is actually pretty cool. But I don't think you'll ever get much out of running genetic limits, because it just doesn't last long enough to be any sort of worth it, unless you are constantly tunneling. But even then, it's not worth the perk slot, and while Force Hesitation is good, I don't think it's going to be doing that much for you, unless I guess you are playing twins, then I guess it's good for you. But I do think the better option here is Machine Learning. Yes, it's definitely hard to actually activate, but once it does, the speed and undetectable is such a handy thing to have, especially for how lengthy the duration is. And this can really be the most useful on killers that don't have any chase power and need that extra speed and even chance to sneak up on the survivors in general. So the potential that this has, I just have to give it the best one. Alien has probably the most annoying perk set for survivors in this game, and every single one has been meta at some point since they're released, but they are all in a way more balanced state now. But I do still think that the best one currently out of them all is Rapid Brutality, because I feel like this can really destroy some survivors with certain killers with this perk on. Like Singularity is absolutely deadly with this perk on, and other M1 killers like Trapper who don't have a special attack really helps them crawl out of the F tier. While the other perks aren't bad in the slightest, and if they're on anybody else they would be the best, but I don't think they compare to the power that Haste has on killers just in general. Chucky probably has my favorite perk in Dead by Daylight ever, which is Batteries Included. It's an underdog perk that really helps, especially because it works through floors too, which makes this perk incredible with indoor maps. 5% speed with that much range works so much of the time to get frame perfect hits. 2 can play is just an absolute meme, which I think is really funny to run, just because you want to punish survivors, but I gotta put my love aside from Batteries Included, and I have to say that Friends Till the End is probably the best one here. This is probably the perk that you're going to see on killers the most. I see it on almost every single game that I have, if not like every other game. This perk is probably the most annoying to play against as survivor, because you will constantly be screaming, you will constantly have your aura revealed, and you'll constantly be exposed. There are ways to play around it for sure, but killers like Ghoul that can get around the map incredibly fast and find you immediately, still with that 10-second aura reading, it's just GG for you, dude. There's nothing you can do. So Friends Till the End is 100% the best one here. Unknown has the most confusing perks. You probably don't know which one is which, considering they all start with un, but I do think Unforeseen is the best one here, because I think it's a better Trail of Torment. I think putting your heartbeat on the gen itself is a lot more confusing than not having one at all, and has messed me up when playing Survivor on multiple occasions. Unbound is okay with the recent buff they did to it, and Undone is really only good with impossible skill check doctors. Unforeseen tops these two perks completely though in usefulness, just because you'll be able to use it quite frequently throughout the game, since the cooldown really isn't that bad. Vecna is next, and I think we can all agree that hands down the best perk here is Weave Attunement. The other two are decently good, but this perk is one of the most annoying to go against when playing Survivor, especially if everyone in the lobby has items. The play is always to drop it in some corner, but even still, the range of the aura reading is so incredible that you as the killer will get some sort of aura reading hit with this perk on at least once in the game. Not even mentioning the long Oblivious effect it has too, which makes it even better. Languid Touch is good with the new Overwhelming Presence, and Dark Arrogance is good with like Myers, but the effect of having a longer Pallet Stun can really mess you up a lot, so Weave's Attunement is very good. Dracula has some pretty meh perks overall, but the one that gets used so much more than the rest, and one that has personally screwed me up countless times, is Human Greed. And I'm sure you guys have also ran with this perk on many occasions, or maybe have ran it yourself. I actually think it's a really fun perk to have on, just to have it. There's no downsides, and you can constantly have aura reading if the survivors never open it. And the fact that you can close it too is just the biggest nut that the killer has. I've tried to get value from Wretched Fate, but it just never ends up working for me. And while Dominance is really funny, it's probably one of the worst perks in the game because it counters chests and totems. Like, what? It was good when Streetwise was bugged, but that's it. But because of how many times Human Greed has given me away, I gotta give it to that perk. Handmaster doesn't have that good of perks either. No Quarter is just the Merciless Storm version for healing, which isn't really that good anyways, I don't think at least. And while I did want to go with All Shaking Thunder, there aren't too many drops that you'll actually take as killer, plus there's an audio cue that the survivors hear too that makes them aware you were running this perk, so they'll probably just play it safely if they are paying attention. So I'm gonna have to go with Jagged Compass because it's a great support perk for other Scourge hooks, plus it's got a pretty decent effect just on its own, which definitely will give you some actually useful information, so that's why I chose that one for the best. Ghoul, I just have to give it for Forever Entwined as the best one. because this perk is just such a nice quality of life perk to have. Is it really that useful in-game? No, not really, but I love being able to make animations faster. It just scratches a part of my brain that makes me want to run this all the time, which if you've been paying attention to the perks I run in-game with the background, you'll know that I have this perk on in almost all of my games. I've actually dodged so many flashlight blinds too with this perk, it's insane. None are free is still very good since it literally just blocks everything in the end game. So if you are chasing someone, literally the only thing they can do is hold W, and nothing but misery is fun, but again, just doesn't work on many killers since you need to hit them with a basic attack, which can screw you over sometimes. But I just have to go with Forever Entwined because it's one of my most favorite perks in this game. And finally we move to Springtrap, who came with some pretty good perks, but need other perks to really sit in their value, you know? But there is one that isn't like that as much as the others, which is Phantom Fear, because this perk has been the death of me as Survivor many times. It's such a good information perk for the killer, and has to make the Survivor play way differently in those 2v1 situations, so they don't get themselves found as easily. And most of the time the lengthy cooldown won't even matter too much. I like Haywire, but you need to run endgame perks to make it work effectively, and Help Wanted is good because you can run it with machine learning and get both effects at the same time. But of course, these perks are already difficult to run since they need to finish the gen you just kicked, and it can be awkward to try and get it to work, but I definitely do think that Phantom Fear is the best one here. Alright, and with that, we've reached the end of the list here. It was fun to really think about which Teachable ends up being the best one out of them all. I just want to say a quick thank you to everybody that has given me support recently. It really means a lot to me. I know my schedule has been super inconsistent and I'm trying to fix that, but I've just got so much happening. But something that I do want to say is that I am getting everything that I need done for streaming. I am almost there so I can start streaming pretty consistently. That's definitely going to be easier for me than making videos, so watch out for any streams that I have done. I'll leave them on YouTube posts, of course, and then just go follow my page if you ever want to get notified. As always, there'll be a link in the description, and you can always find the links to my Twitter and my Twitch on the homepage of my YouTube channel. I hope you guys like this video, and leave any ideas you want for a video down below, and I'll read and respond to all of them. If you are new here and you like what you watch, then I hope you consider subscribing. Anyways, guys, as always, I hope you all have a great rest of your day or night, and take care, everybody.